The silent difference between a peaceful life and a broken one. There are two kinds of lives being lived in this world, though most people never realize the difference. One is loud, full of arguments, explanations, emotional storms, endless reactions. A life where every word from others can shake your mood, where every small conflict steals your sleep, where peace is always just out of reach. The other life looks quiet from the outside, but inside it is powerful, calm, grounded, unmoved by chaos. The difference between these two lives is not luck, it is not intelligence, it is not strength in the way the world defines strength. The difference is reaction. We live in an age where everyone wants something from you, your attention, your emotion, your anger, your fear. People provoke because they want control. They ignore because they want power. They criticize because they want to feel superior. And most people, without thinking, give them exactly what they want, a reaction. One message answered too quickly, one argument taken too far, one moment of anger that cannot be undone. And slowly, without noticing, people build a life shaped not by choice, but by impulse. This is not a story about becoming cold or emotionless. It is not about suppressing feelings or pretending not to care. It is about learning something far more difficult and far more valuable. How to feel deeply without losing yourself. How to stay calm without becoming weak. How to protect your inner world when the outer world tries to pull you apart. Because the truth is simple, even if it is uncomfortable. You are not destroyed by what happens to you. You are destroyed by how you react to it. And once you understand this, once you truly see it, something changes. You stop being easy to control. You stop being easy to provoke. You stop being easy to break. This is not motivation for a moment. This is a shift in how you live, and it begins with understanding what reaction really costs you. When you react, you hand over control. Most people believe that reacting quickly means they're strong. They think speaking back proves confidence. They think defending themselves proves self-respect. They think showing emotion proves honesty. But in reality, instant reaction is often the clearest sign of lost control. Think about it. If someone can say a single sentence and instantly change your mood, who is really in charge? If a stranger's comment can ruin your entire day, who is holding the power? If silence, criticism, or disrespect can pull you into anger without permission, are you leading your life or being led? Reaction feels natural, but natural does not mean healthy, and it certainly does not mean powerful. When you react without awareness, you are not choosing your response, you are surrendering it. Every uncontrolled reaction costs something. Your peace, your focus, your dignity, sometimes your future. And the danger is not just the reaction itself, it's the label that follows. People do not remember your intentions, they remember your behavior. There's a story that illustrates this truth clearly. A young man worked in an office where expectations were high and competition was constant. He arrived early, stayed late, and handled his responsibilities with discipline. For years, he built a reputation quietly, reliable, capable, committed. One afternoon, during a team meeting, his manager criticized his work in front of everyone. The words were sharp, unfair, incomplete. The room went quiet. In that moment, the young man felt something rise inside him, heat, humiliation, a need to defend himself. And without pausing, without thinking, he reacted. His voice grew louder, his words rushed out, he explained, argued, justified, pushed back. The meeting ended in tension. The manager said nothing more and walked away calmly. The next day, the office felt different. No one spoke about his dedication. No one mentioned his long hours or past achievements. What people remembered was that moment. He was no longer the hard-working one. He became the emotional one. One reaction rewrote years of effort. This is how reaction works. It gives people a single frame through which they judge you, and once that frame is set, it's difficult to change. The painful truth is this: he did not lose because he was wronged. He lost because he gave control of his response to someone else. This is what emotional captivity looks like. Not chains on your hands, but triggers in your mind. Not prison walls, but buttons others know how to press. And most people never realize they're trapped. They think they're standing up for themselves, but in reality, they are feeding the very forces that disturb them. Because reacting does not weaken the person who provokes you, it strengthens them. When you react instantly, you confirm their power. You show them they can reach inside you without permission. You teach them exactly how to control your emotional state. And the cost is rarely immediate. It shows up later. In regret, in damaged relationships, in moments you wish you could relive with silence instead of sound. True strength does not rush to speak. It does not explode when challenged. It does not panic when misunderstood. True strength pauses. And in that pause, something remarkable happens. You take your power back. Not by attacking, not by explaining, but by choosing when and if you will respond. That pause is the first step towards freedom, and it's where this journey truly begins.
The pause that returns your power. There is a moment most people never notice. It lives between what happens and what you do next. It lasts only a few seconds, and yet within it lies the difference between control and chaos. This moment is the pause. Strong people are not immune to emotion. They feel anger, hurt, fear, and frustration just like everyone else. The difference is not what they feel, but what they do before they act. When something triggers you, your body reacts first. Your heart tightens. Your breath becomes shallow. Your thoughts race toward defense or attack. This is the body preparing for survival, not wisdom. But here is the truth few are taught. Emotion rises fast, but it fades just as quickly if you do not fuel it. The pause interrupts the automatic cycle. When you stop, even briefly, your nervous system begins to settle. The fire does not disappear, but it stops spreading. Your mind, once clouded, regains clarity. 5 seconds of stillness can save years of regret. During this pause, you are not suppressing emotion. You are observing it. You are saying without words, "I feel this, but I do not belong to it." Breathing becomes your anchor. One slow inhale, one steady exhale. With each breath, you reclaim space inside yourself. And in that space, you gain a choice. You may still speak, but now your words carry weight instead of heat. You may still act, but now your actions serve you, not your ego. This pause changes everything. It transforms arguments into conversations. It turns conflict into clarity. It separates momentary emotion from lasting consequence. In relationships, the pause prevents wounds that never heal. In work, it preserves respect that cannot be rebuilt once lost. In moments of tension, it protects your dignity. Silence in that moment is not avoidance, it is preparation. Those who master this pause become difficult to disturb. They are not easily provoked, not easily manipulated, not easily controlled. Because when you no longer react instantly, the world loses its grip on you. You begin to move with intention rather than impulse, and intention is where real strength lives. But the greatest value of the pause is not just what it prevents, it is what it reveals. The regrets we carry are born in seconds. There are moments we revisit late at night, moments we replay silently, wishing we had chosen differently, wishing we had spoken less, wishing we had waited. These memories are rarely about what was said to us. They are about what we said in return. Regret does not come from being hurt. It comes from how we reacted while hurting. A single sentence spoken in anger can echo for years. A single action taken without thought can erase trust built over a lifetime. And once it happens, there is no rewind. People believe they carry the pain others cause them, but most of the time what weighs on them is their own response. The words they cannot take back, the moment they lost control, the silence that came afterwards. There is a story that captures this truth painfully well. Two sisters grew up side by side, sharing secrets, laughter, and an unspoken bond. They understood each other without explanation. They defended each other without hesitation. At a family gathering years later, emotions ran high. Old memories lingered beneath the surface. And during a casual conversation, one sister made a comment, light on the surface, but sharp underneath. It touched something buried, something unresolved. The other sister felt the sting immediately. Her chest tightened. Her thoughts raced back to old wounds she never healed. Without pausing, she reacted. Her voice rose. Her words cut deep, not because they were true, but because they carried years of unspoken pain. The room went silent. The laughter disappeared. The sister who had spoken carelessly left early that night. Days passed, then weeks. The closeness they once shared never returned. Years later, the sister who reacted would find herself staring at old photographs. Two smiling faces, two people who once felt inseparable. And the tears that came were not for what was said to her. They were for what she had said back. That is the quiet cruelty of reaction. It feels justified in the moment, but it leaves behind a weight that time cannot always lift. This is why responding is not the same as reacting. Reacting is driven by pain that wants release. Responding is guided by awareness that seeks peace. To respond, you must allow the emotion to exist without giving it command. You feel the anger, but you do not hand it the microphone. You acknowledge the hurt, but you do not let it decide your future. There is a sentence that changes everything when practiced sincerely. This feeling is real, but my reaction is a choice. When something painful happens, do nothing at first. Stay still. Let the emotion move through you instead of outward from you. Ask yourself quietly, am I responding to what is happening now or to something unresolved from the past? Time is your ally here. 10 minutes, 1 hour, 1 night. With time, the truth becomes clearer, and clarity leads to responses that heal instead of harm. Because reacting may feel powerful in the moment, but peace is the only power that leaves no regret behind.
Learning to respond instead of react. There is a skill few people are ever taught. Not in school, not at work, not even at home. The skill of staying present when emotion demands control. Most people believe emotions must be acted on immediately. If they feel anger, they release it. If they feel hurt, they defend themselves. If they feel fear, they retreat or attack. But emotions were never meant to lead. They were meant to inform. The moment you understand this, your relationship with yourself changes. Responding is not about suppressing emotion. It is about holding it with awareness. You do not deny the feeling. You sit with it. You let it rise, move, and soften without turning it into action. This is difficult because the mind is impatient. It wants relief, not wisdom. It wants expression, not understanding. But wisdom requires delay. When you stop reacting, your body begins to calm. Your breathing slows. Your thoughts reorganize. And then something unexpected happens. You start to see the situation clearly. You notice tone instead of insult, intent instead of attack, context instead of assumption. You realize that not every sharp word is meant to wound, not every silence is rejection, not every disagreement is a threat. Responding allows you to choose words that heal instead of harm. It allows you to act in a way that aligns with who you are, not who the moment provoked you to be. This is not passivity. This is mastery. A person who responds carries quiet authority. They are not rushed. They are not shaken. They move with purpose. And people notice. Because in a world addicted to noise, calm becomes rare, and rarity is power. But perhaps the most misunderstood tool of response is silence. Silence is not weakness, it is command. Silence has been given a bad reputation. People assume that if you do not speak, you have lost, that if you walk away, you are afraid, that if you do not defend yourself, you must be guilty. But silence is not absence. It is presence without chaos. The truth is simple. It takes far more strength to remain quiet than to react. Anyone can argue. Anyone can shout. Anyone can explain themselves endlessly. But it takes discipline to say nothing when your emotions are begging for release. Silence denies others what they often seek most, your reaction. And without that reaction, their power fades. There was a man once whose reputation was attacked publicly. Stories were twisted, details were distorted. His character was questioned in front of people who did not know him. Everyone expected him to respond immediately, to clarify, to defend, to expose the lies. But he chose silence, not because he had nothing to say, but because he understood timing. Weeks passed, whispers grew louder, judgment came quickly as it often does. Still, he remained quiet. He focused on his work. His actions stayed consistent. His integrity did not change. Months later, the truth surfaced on its own. The lies collapsed under their own weight. Those who accused him were exposed, not by his words, but by reality. What once looked like weakness became dignity. Silence allowed time to do what arguments never could. Silence kept his hands clean. Silence kept his energy intact. Silence protected his peace. This is how silence becomes power. You do not need to respond to every provocation. You do not need to correct every misunderstanding. You do not need to prove your worth to people who have already decided how they see you. Sometimes the most effective response is a calm refusal to engage. In conflict, silence prevents escalation. In drama, silence lets truth rise. In disrespect, silence exposes insecurity. A simple nod, a steady gaze, a quiet exit. These are not signs of defeat. They are signals of self-command. Because when you stay silent, you remain in control. You choose not to pour your energy into chaos. You choose not to feed what seeks to disturb you. And slowly, something shifts. People stop provoking you, not because they respect you more, but because they can no longer reach you. That is the hidden strength of silence. It is not empty. It is full of intention. And for those who understand it, silence speaks louder than any reaction ever could.
Not everything deserves your energy. One of the quiet mistakes people make is believing they must respond to everything. Every comment, every accusation, every misunderstanding, every moment of tension. It sounds responsible. It sounds mature. But in reality, it is exhausting.
Your energy is not endless. Your attention is not renewable. And every time you give it to something that does not serve you, you have less left for what truly matters. Many conflicts survive only because they are fed. Remove your energy and they collapse. Some people do not seek understanding, they seek reaction. They want to see you disturbed. They want to feel important by controlling your emotions. They want drama because it distracts them from their own emptiness. And if you keep stepping into that space, you slowly abandon your own. There was a young woman in college who understood discipline and focus. She studied late into the night. She had goals that reached beyond her surroundings. Her future mattered to her. Then rumors began to circulate. Whispers passed through classrooms. Eyes followed her in hallways. Someone claimed she had cheated, without proof, without truth. Anger consumed her, not because she was guilty, but because she felt powerless. She tried to explain. She wrote messages. She defended herself again and again. Each attempt drained her further. Weeks passed, and something changed. Not the rumor, but her. She stopped studying with the same intensity. Her focus shattered. Her confidence weakened. The lie did not defeat her. Her decision to fight it with her energy did. Years later, she would say something that stayed with everyone who heard it. I didn't lose because of what they said. I lost because I gave my future to something that didn't deserve it. That is the hidden cost of over-engagement. When you fight every battle, you win none that matter. Protecting your energy is not selfish. It is survival with intention. You must decide where your attention goes, who deserves access to your emotions, what situations are worth your time. Not every invitation to argue deserves your presence. Not every misunderstanding requires your explanation. Not every voice deserves a reply. Some things dissolve only when ignored. When you stop feeding what drains you, your strength returns. Your clarity sharpens. Your direction becomes visible again. You are not here to win arguments. You are here to build a life. And the strongest builders know when to walk away. Reaction is a habit, not your identity. Most people believe they react because they are angry, sensitive, or emotional. But in truth, they react because they have practiced reacting for years. Reaction becomes automatic. A raised voice triggers another. Disrespect invites defense. Silence creates anxiety. No decision is made. No awareness is present. The response happens before the mind arrives. This is what habit looks like. When something is repeated long enough, it stops feeling like a choice. It feels like who you are. But it is not. There is a powerful difference between instinct and mastery. Reaction is instinctive. Response is intentional. The person who reacts moves like fire, fast, loud, consuming. The person who responds moves like water, steady, deep, impossible to grasp. And only one of them remains whole after the storm. There was a young man working as a server in a busy restaurant. The shift was long. The room was crowded. A customer arrived with entitlement in his posture and impatience in his voice. He snapped his fingers. He demanded attention. When his order arrived later than expected, he insulted the server loudly, calling his intelligence into question. The room froze. Everyone waited for the reaction. The server felt the heat rise. Years of being overlooked, years of quiet endurance. But instead of reacting, he paused. He looked at the man calmly and spoke without tension. "I'm doing my best tonight," he said. "If that isn't enough for you, I understand, but I will continue to treat you with respect because that is my standard." The power in the room shifted. The customer fell silent. The insults stopped. Later that night, the manager called the server aside and offered him a promotion, not because he was submissive, but because he showed command. That moment revealed something important. When you respond instead of react, you expose strength that needs no volume. Reaction is a habit, but habit can be rewritten, and awareness is the first step. Each time you pause, you interrupt the old pattern. Each time you choose calm, you weaken the habit of reaction. With practice, response becomes natural, and reaction becomes optional. This is how power is built, not in dramatic moments, but in quiet discipline. When the past speaks through the present. Not every reaction belongs to the moment it appears in. Sometimes what feels urgent is old. A tone reminds you of being dismissed. A silence echoes abandonment. A criticism reopens a wound you never addressed. And suddenly, you are not reacting to now, you are reacting to then. This is why people overreact to small things. The emotion does not match the situation because it did not start there. Unhealed pain does not stay quiet, it waits. And when the present resembles the past, even slightly, it rises. A child who was ignored becomes an adult who cannot tolerate distance. A person once humiliated becomes hypersensitive to disrespect. Someone who was abandoned reacts intensely to any sign of withdrawal. The reaction seems irrational to others, but inside it feels familiar. This is not weakness, it is memory. And until it is understood, it controls behavior silently. The danger is not the wound itself. The danger is acting from it without awareness. Because when pain leads, peace is impossible. Healing begins the moment you recognize the pattern. When emotion rises, ask yourself quietly, is this about what's happening now or about something unresolved inside me? This question creates distance, and distance creates choice. You begin to realize that not every feeling requires action. Not every trigger deserves obedience. You can acknowledge pain without letting it speak for you. This is how old wounds lose power, not through suppression, not through denial, but through awareness. When you respond from clarity instead of history, the cycle breaks. You stop giving your present to your past. You stop handing your peace to old pain. And slowly, reactions soften. Responses grow stronger. Because the moment you see your wound, it no longer controls you. It becomes something you carry with understanding, not something that carries you.
The loud voice that steals your peace. There is a voice inside that reacts faster than reason. It speaks in urgency. It demands recognition. It cannot tolerate being ignored, misunderstood, or disrespected. This voice is ego. Ego is not confidence. It is insecurity wearing armor. It tells you to respond immediately, to correct others, to prove your worth, to show that you cannot be treated that way. And every time you listen to it, peace slips further away. Ego believes silence means losing. It believes walking away means weakness. It believes being calm means surrender. But ego is mistaken. Because ego does not protect you, it traps you. It keeps you locked in endless cycles of explanation and defense. It pulls you into arguments that do not change outcomes. It convinces you that being right is more important than being free.
This is why ego reacts so strongly to disrespect. It cannot accept that others may misjudge you. It cannot survive the idea of being overlooked. It cannot rest when validation is absent. And so it pushes you to speak, to fight, to justify. But here is the truth most people never learn. You do not need to defend what is already real. Your character does not disappear because someone misunderstands you. Your value does not shrink because someone fails to see it. There was a man who dedicated years of his life to a company. He gave his energy, his loyalty, his health. He believed commitment would be honored. One day, without warning, he was replaced. No explanation, no gratitude, no closure. His ego burned. He wanted to expose the company publicly, to prove how much he had given, to make sure everyone knew he was wronged. Before acting, he visited his grandmother, a woman who had endured loss, betrayal, and hardship without bitterness. She listened quietly, then said something simple. You don't heal by proving others wrong. You heal by refusing to let their actions decide who you become. That sentence stopped him. He did nothing. No public accusations, no emotional messages, no attempts to reclaim dignity through noise. He walked away silently and began again. Months later, he built something of his own, slowly, patiently, without bitterness. Years later, he was stronger than he had ever been. Not because he fought, but because he released his ego's need to win. Ego demands reaction. Wisdom chooses peace. And peace, in the long run, always outlives ego.
There comes a moment when everything you have learned settles into silence. Not the silence of avoidance, not the silence of fear, but the silence of understanding. You begin to see that the world does not need to change for you to be at peace. People do not need to behave better for you to feel whole. Circumstances do not need to soften for you to remain steady. What changes is not the world around you, it is the world within you. You no longer rush to react. You no longer feel the urge to prove. You no longer hand your emotions to situations that cannot give you anything in return. You pause. You breathe. You choose. And in that choice, you reclaim something most people never realize they lost: your inner authority. Life will still test you. Words will still sting. Silence will still feel uncomfortable at times. Misunderstanding will still happen. But none of it owns you anymore. You understand now that strength does not shout. It does not argue. It does not chase validation. Strength listens. Strength waits. Strength moves only when it is aligned with truth. You stop reacting not because you are numb, but because you are awake. Awake to the cost of unnecessary battles. Awake to the weight of words spoken too fast. Awake to the peace that exists when you refuse to be pulled into chaos. The world may remain loud, but you do not. And that is your advantage. Because calm confuses those who seek control. Silence unsettles those who feed on reaction. Clarity disarms those who thrive on drama. You do not need to announce your growth. Others will feel it. In the way you listen without interruption. In the way you walk away without bitterness.
in the way your presence no longer carries tension. This is the quiet power most people spend their lives searching for. Not in domination, not in victory, not in being right, but in being free. Free from emotional traps, free from ego's demands, free from the past's grip on the present. And from this place you live differently. You speak with intention. You act with awareness. You protect your peace as something sacred. Because you finally understand. You are not your reactions. You are not your anger. You are not the storms that pass through your life. You are the stillness that remains when they are gone. So the next time the world tries to pull you into noise, pause. Remember who you are. Choose silence if needed. Choose calm if possible. Choose wisdom always. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is nothing at all. And in that nothing, you will find everything you were looking for. You are no longer controlled. You are no longer reactive. You are no longer easy to shake. You are steady. You are clear. You are free. And that is a power no one can ever take from you.